Hey, what's up everyone? This is Silver Slayer. There is a massive shortage of silver. That shouldn't be too surprising since this pandemic shut down all the gold and silver mines across the globe. Even the US Mint sold out of American Eagles last year. I really don't think people understand how dangerous and severe this is, not only for the silver market, but to a much greater degree. So, keep on stacking and let's jump into it. See, here's what really scares me. Unless you watch my videos or you came across this specific article, you probably wouldn't know that there was a record silver shortage in 2020. Mainstream media, those news sources, do not cover this type of stuff. So even if you are looking, or you would be a potential investor in the precious metals, you wouldn't come across this type of vital information that could definitely sway your decision or open your eyes into a new type of asset that could diversify your portfolio and tremendously help preserve your wealth. See, they don't cover this stuff. They'll downplay silver. Did you also know that silver was the number one performing asset of 2020? And that's comparing it, where we're talking about it beat stocks, it beat even gold. Silver was the number one performing asset. But where do you hear that news from? Nobody's talking about it. I bet if it was stock markets that was the number one, you would hear it everywhere. But silver was. So that's why you don't see any type of news sources covering that stuff. And that's dangerous. And if we're going to talk about a silver shortage, we also have to talk about demand. Because production, if the production is low, then it really doesn't have that great of an impact if the demand isn't high. But what I'm about to expose in this video is extremely alarming. Demand is higher than ever. The supply is lower than ever. Low supply, high demand shoots the price up. So this video, we're going to look at it from an even greater perspective, right? I like to make my videos broaden the horizon. I like to think outside the box. I like to really look at the bigger picture of things. We can focus on the day-to-day stuff and speculate all we want, but I'm taking this video to another level. We're looking at the 2021 version of this, where things are headed, but we're also going to dive into something that I really don't talk about much on this channel. We're talking about the silver futures contracts, the options markets. Incorporating these as well, intertwining these numbers, especially with the demand or the vanishing supply, goes into deep territory. Why? Because these options markets or futures also incorporate and have to do with the physical precious metal. We're going to talk about that in a second. Let's jump into this first part though. So, the Silver Institute, which is the holy grail of information, which is also very bullish on silver for 2021, had their annual interim silver market review, right? The Silver Institute's the only one that releases this type of information. So when they do release stuff, I always cover it on my channel, and it's taken very serious. So this report was prepared for the Silver Institute by consultants at Metals Focus. This review includes historical supply and demand statistics and projected data for 2020. You can read the summary here. So as you might imagine, both supply and demand of silver declined in 2020. As a result of the economic lockdowns and obviously from this virus, right? I mean, not only did you have minimal workers, but you had Mexico and Peru got hit hard from the pandemic. They accumulate 40% of the global silver production. So that hurt the production pretty bad. And silver is found as byproduct or basically by accident, right? They don't look for silver. There's no focusing silver mines. Silver's found by accident. They're looking for gold, things that'll put a pretty penny in their pocket. Why look for silver when it's $25 an ounce when you can look for gold that's $2,000 an ounce? You get what I'm saying? So the primary components of silver or of the supply are worldwide the mine output, which looks to be at its lowest level since 2011, and recycling. So two minor components are hedging activity, which should be in the net demand rather than the supply in 2020, and official sales. Official sales have become negligible since the last three governments and central banks to hold any significant silver inventories pretty much depleted their holdings many years ago. And that's because, especially the United States, they sold their silver. They don't stack silver. They don't see silver as money anymore. Gold, definitely. Silver, not so much. That's also interesting why you hear banks like Citibank, Bank of America, calling for extremely high silver prices. Even though they don't view silver as money, they are releasing statements saying that they are bullish for silver in 2021, which you never hear banks talk about. Gold, they might, but silver, no. So the largest components of physical demand are industrial manufacturing, jewelry, and investment. The industrial demand in 2020 is forecasted to be at its lowest level since 2015, while jewelry demand projected to be at its lowest level in more than a decade. In contrast, physical investment demand looks to be at its highest level since 2015. The U.S. is the world's largest retail investment market, where demand may rise 62% in 2020 from 2019 levels. This more than offsets an estimated 20% decline in demand from India, which is the world's second largest retail investment market. So, minor components of demand are one, photography, which has declined, and silverware and net hedging demand. See, here's the interesting thing. There's this gap in demand, a declining demand from 2019, but then everything switched. And there's one person that has to do a lot with it, and that's Joe Biden. Now that Joe Biden is the president, he has this green energy revolution. He's trying to go green, get the entire country and hopefully the world from his eyes to go solar, right? Go solar. Solar panels everywhere, cars, everything, even houses. Solar panels, and silver is used in these solar panels with photovoltaic cells, which has silver inside of them. So the demand for silver from the green energy revolution is going to boost demand dramatically, and they're looking by 2023, 2025, millions of ounces, or hundreds of millions of ounces of silver. A lot of money, billions of dollars, I think maybe even trillions of dollars within the next 5-10 years. So that's extremely That's an extremely significant thing to think about, and an extremely significant number. But not only that, then you have electric vehicles, right? Electric vehicles, but you also have 5G towers. And not only that, silver lithium batteries, and anything else that's going to come out technologically in the next 5-10 years as we advance into a new digital era. Silver is only going to be needed more and more and more, but there's less and less of it. It's getting harder to dig out of the ground. It's getting harder to find, and miners really just don't care for silver. So that's something we got to take a look at. So forecasted combined net result of physical supply is 2020 surplus of 31 million ounces. However, that figure is not the bottom line. 2020, it looks the net silver, or the net investment in exchange traded products, ETPs, will reach 350 million ounces. When you factor this in demand, which is touted as physical demand, but may largely be on paper, the net silver shortage for 2020 could be 318 million ounces. And that's why we're going to take the second part of this video looking into ETPs, ETFs, all that stuff, because a lot of people don't factor that in. But if you have ETPs, if you have, futures contracts, that still is physical gold and silver. They usually don't, but they could still exchange that paper contract into physical precious metals. So if everyone started to do that, we would be negative hundreds of millions of ounces in the hole. What's going to happen though? They own that silver, but if there's not that much silver to give out, what would happen when the supply cannot meet the demand, or when the demand cannot meet the supply? What happens? It has to. Now that's when I say the producers turn into consumers and the consumers turn into producers. If accurate, this would by far be the largest ever annual shortage of silver supply versus demand. So they keep going on. I'm just gonna highlight some of the main things they talk about. As calculated, the previous largest annual silver shortage from 1991 to 2000 was 111 million ounces, and this shortage in 2020 far exceeds those levels, and I think it's only going to get worse. only get worse. So they keep going on making some other points, but I really want to go into this part of the video. So 2020 in review, a fifth successive record year for CME Group metal products. So right, they mention their statistics from their company. This is interesting stuff. Combined futures and options average daily volume was basically 700,000 contracts in 2020. A new record. That's a new record. Metals, futures, and options have now set an annual volume records in 5 consecutive years. Every year it's going higher, and you can see the chart here. And we're going to talk about why these numbers are significant. Just stay with me. If you don't know about this stuff, I am going to explain what a futures contract is. So this is going to be an educational video for many different reasons. Because even if you don't invest into the digital side, even if you only own physical precious metals, it still is beneficial to know what's going on. It is essentially the same market. So average combined metals open interest of 2,760 million contracts also set a record in 2020, showing consistent growth as volume increased. Precious metals volume set a record of 2020 of 600,000 contracts per day. So you could see the products. You got futures, 7.8% up, options, 0.5, micro silver futures up nearly 600%. It goes for gold, aluminum, and steel. So they keep going on with gold, and I think they go to copper. Yeah, copper as well. But so year-on-year momentum in the steel complex continues to grow. I mean, everything is. We saw record APAC volumes in 2020, up 102% versus the full year of 2019. And it goes on with growth in South Korea. But what is a futures contract, and why is this important? This is important for a couple different reasons. Now, I'm going to explain what it is, and then I'll go down and tie in why this is so extreme, severe, and detrimental for silver's price and its silver's future. So, gold and silver futures are traded on several exchanges across the globe. It's kind of like stock market. These instruments can give investors exposure to gold and silver while only putting up a fraction of the total cost of the contract. Because of this leverage, gold and silver futures are not to be taken lightly and are certainly not appropriate for all investors. And that's why I say, especially if you're a beginner, silver stackers, this is the saying of the stackers. Saying it goes like this: if you cannot hold it, you do not own it. When you put your money out of fiat paper, US dollars or paper money into precious metals, you have just transferred your wealth into 100% into your control. When your money's in US dollars in your bank account, the government still basically owns that. I mean, they have a hold on that. When you transfer to physical precious metals, now you are in complete control. And that's why they don't like precious metals, because they don't want you to be in control of your wealth. So, what exactly is a gold or silver futures contract? Futures contracts were first traded in the mid-19th century with the establishment of a central grain market. This central grain market gave farmers the ability to sell their grain for immediate delivery in what is known as the spot market. Or they had the option to sell their grain for a certain price for a future delivery date. A futures contract is a legal agreement between the buyer and the seller for purchase or sale of an asset on a specific date during a specific month. The purchase and sale of the futures contracts is facilitated through a futures exchange and is standardized in terms of quality, quantity, and delivery time, as well as delivery location. The price of a futures contract is not fixed, however, and is constantly in a state of discovery through an auction-like process on exchange-traded floors and or electronic trading platforms. In the case of gold and silver, a futures contract outlines a specific delivery time and a place for good delivery, gold or silver bullion. So we don't really have to go into who uses it, but I do want to go over how it works. So, in the next paragraph, or the next part, if I do buy a futures contract, do I own gold? These things are important to take note of when we're incorporating the silver supply versus silver demand moving forwards. With a gold or silver futures contract, he or she is entering into an agreement through an exchange to buy or sell the metal at a certain date in the future. The most recognized exchange when it comes to metals is COMEX, right? That's what everyone uses. The fact that futures contracts only require a small portion of the contract value makes them a leveraged instrument. So we don't got to go into all that. So basically, this is kind of a tricky question to answer when we're talking about, do you own physical gold if you buy a contract? The answer is yes, but there's a little bit of gray area. When purchasing a gold futures contract, you can take the delivery on that kind of contract of the physical gold. You can actually trade that for physical gold. This process can be lengthy and somewhat complicated. However, one does not have the physical gold in their possession until they take delivery, and even the gold will likely be held in a depository until it's transferred to the location of their choice. So this technically does mean that they own the physical gold. They're not in, the third party's holding it, but that is their physical gold. So when we're talking about 600,000 contracts a day and all these high numbers, that is gold and silver that exists, but there's not enough to go around. We're in the negative by hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of ounces. So not only do we have to incorporate the physical demand from, people using the physical metal, the people buying it like you and I, the people using it for iPhones, for green energy, but also these contracts that people own. We do not have that much silver. There is literally not that much silver out. Now, here's the thing, though. Most futures contracts are never delivered upon, and gold and silver are no exception. See, people usually don't require the physical metal, right? They'll sell it, right? Look, when looking to buy gold and silver, there is easier ways, right? There's a lot of easier ways, but still, you have to think about this, because if people do start, changing it or transferring it into precious metal or physical precious metals, there wouldn't be enough. So there's definitely an ongoing problem here that we cannot keep up with the production to the side of the demand. The supply cannot meet the demand. That's only going to push the price up. Silver's scarce. Like I said, it's getting harder to find. This problem can't just keep going on and everything's going to be fine. We're already starting to see the first consequences, the aftermath of silver scarcity. And that is why you're seeing these extremely high premiums on American Eagles. That's why an American Eagle is almost the same price as a Panda nowadays. That's crazy. It used to be American Eagles were $2, $3 over spot price at most. Now American Eagles are $10, $15 over spot price. That's because of the silver shortage. And it's only going to get worse. So don't sell your silver. Hold on to it. It's going to pay off. Producers will turn into consumers. Consumers will turn into the producers. The people that want this silver will be selling it to the people that need this silver. And that's how it's going to go. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did think this video was educational, informational, at least entertaining, make sure to smash the like button. I post daily videos every single day, giving you guys the inside scoop. You got to be subscribed. Not for my sake, for your own. You got to know this stuff. So thanks for tuning in. This was Silver Slayer. The link to this article will be in the description. I'll see you guys soon. Peace.